All right, welcome to the second episode of Screening Out. I'm Jalen Kroger. I'm a culture reporter here at the Daily Nebraskan. I'm joined by...
I'm Dixon Janney. I'm also a culture reporter here at the Daily Nebraskan.
We're missing Ben today, so it's just us. And today we're discussing the two Netflix movies that are in the Best Picture noms. We got Frankenstein and Train Dreams. Which one do you want to start with, Dixon?
I think we should probably start with Frankenstein mostly, just because I feel like I have more to say about Train Dreams.
Okay, I would agree with you. So what do you want to start with Frankenstein?
I think we have to go with the cast.
The cast is pretty good.
I mean, you got Oscar Isaac, you got Jacob Elordi, you got Mia Goth. They're all there.
Mia Goth pulling double duty. She's playing two roles in this movie.
Yeah.
But even though the one role was like for 20 minutes, it was not that long. So
I'm going to be honest, on my first watch through, she got me with the eyebrows. I did not know it was her. And then I rewatched and I was like, wait a minute.
Okay, Oscar Isaac is really good in this movie, and I do like Jacob Elordi. I don't think he's an Oscar nom for Frankenstein.
No, I don't think so.
I just think that's a little far-fetched. I think it's a little crazy that they gave it to him. We'll talk about it later. I think there's another person in the other movie we watched that probably deserved it over him. But I think the original casting was Andrew Garfield, but he had to back out. I think that is a huge what if. I kind of wish I would have seen that movie instead. I'm not saying Jacob Elordi is dragging it down, not by any stretch of the imagination, but Andrew Garfield's just a force when it comes to acting. I just would have liked to see him in this role too.
I agree. And I feel like a lot of the time when you get Andrew Garfield, you kind of get charismatic, kind of talks a lot. You think of Spider-Man, you think of Tick, Tick, Boom. Then with Frankenstein, it's very short phrases for most of the movie, kind of he's reserved. And so I think it would be it would be a lot different to see Andrew Garfield in a role like this. And I think it really would have it does make for a great what if.
Yeah, I just kind of wish I would have seen that. But Oscar Isaac in this movie he's pretty good.
He's fantastic. I think Oscar Isaac's performance, he's intense, he's angry. That is what you need when you get Victor Frankenstein. And then near the end of the movie, well, I guess kind of when he's talking on the boat, you can kind of tell that he's like, I really messed up. And I think the fact that he's able to play both so well is just it really feels like he did make that monster and now it's going to kill him.
Yeah, he started off in this way of he was overzealous, and he's blinded by this ambition. Well, that's obviously the story of Frankenstein. That's nothing new, but he really embodied that role in a interesting way. We should also, I kind of want to touch on Christoph Waltz in this movie, yes, who is an original character for this movie, by the way. So he's doing a good performance. I think it's a little weird that this character's in this movie, though.
Yeah, I would agree. He's just kind of there for ad libs. It's all
yeah, a little bit. He's kind of there to he's kind of the glue to fill in the cracks. He's like, how does Frankenstein get all the money? But I'm like, I never cared about that, I never needed to see that. Yeah,
it's more just yeah, I think you can tell the story without him. Obviously, you do get a little bit of extra context, and maybe Del Toro thought that in the original story it was kind of missing that. So I don't think it was necessarily a negative on the movie. I just watching it, I was like, it didn't necessarily have to happen.
Yeah, it was just strange to me, but I do want to kind of you touched on a little bit Guillermo del Toro's directing in this movie. This was the movie he was meant to make. I don't think it's great. That's a really harsh thing to say, because he's been doing monster movies forever, and this is the one he's always talked about doing, and it feels right for him, but just it feels like something's missing in this movie.
I agree, and I'm not sure if it's kind of Netflix pull or what happened there, because he had for Pinocchio, and maybe he had a fantastic experience the first time, and decided to go back to Netflix. But I do feel like a lot of the times Netflix movies kind of have this sort of stipulation that they're going to be a little bit more devoid of emotion than a theater release. Our other film we're talking about later, I'm not so sure about it suffering from the same thing, but we'll get into that later.
Yeah, there's some scenes in this movie that do feel really inspired, especially by Guillermo del Toro's previous work. The one scene with the angel, where it's like all on fire and stuff, that was really beautiful. But I do think you're a little bit right about this Netflix. Like, there's a bit of an, I don't know. It puts a little bit of an asterisk on this movie for me. It's a Netflix movie, and you can kind of tell it looks kind of cheap sometimes, which you don't really want that from a monster movie.
Yeah.
Like, the practical stuff looks good, but the CGI in some scenes, that explosion scene, it was rough.
The explosion wasn't great. I will say, I really liked, like, kind of the CG with, like, you know, the angel, like when it starts to move, that those scenes still were very powerful, and it does kind of like have that like dark, eerie feel that you kind of expect from Del Toro. I do also really like when they bring him to life, when it like goes inside of his like body, and then like you see the heart start beating. There was a part of me that was like, this is like really good CGI. It almost looks real. I had to watch it like 3 or 4 times to be like, that's where it's bad. That's where it's bad.
I mean, I don't know. Some of the scenes just really stuck out to me, and some of the lighting in this movie was really bad. Like some of this daylight lighting was rough. It looked like Wicked, and that's not a compliment. That's an insult. Yeah, sorry.
No, you're fine. I think kind of this movie does not excel in its cinematography. I will say.
Yeah.
I think comparatively, Train Dreams blows it out of the water. I will say, I don't think that there's a single Oscar nomination that is below a 3.5. And maybe that's overzealous of me, but I think that, you know, it does take maybe 3. And we haven't talked about F1 yet, so once we get there, maybe I'll change my tune. But I think so far I've just kind of really all the movies we watched I've really resonated with. I found that, you know, there's a lot of things to like. There's like gripes, and like maybe they fall flat in some areas, but the rest of the movie as a whole really brings it up. And I think it's the case again with Frankenstein.
And that's fair. Maybe I'm being a bit of a hater, but some of the stuff, it just was so jarring to me. It took me out like completely. I couldn't get over how bad the lighting was, how bad the CGI was sometimes, and just how kind of flat a performance Jacob Elordi's kind of giving in this movie. And I get that's the Frankenstein character, but I would have liked to see a little more, you know, dynamicism in that role. Like, I wanted to see a little bit more of an arc besides him learning how to talk, you know?
Yeah, it's kind of just like he learns how to talk, and then he learns that, you know, he can actually be loved, and all of a sudden he's just out to kill people. Well, I guess that's not why he's out to kill people. Rest in peace, Mia Goth.
It's kind of how it feels, though. Like, a little bit. It's how it feels. Like, the death of Mia Goth doesn't have, like... It has weight, but it kind of feels weightless after the moment. Like, it just kind of drops and it's gone.
Yeah, they don't really ever reference her again. She's just kind of out of the movie, which I think it didn't serve this movie as well as it did One Battle. Like, she was kind of the reason for their connection in a way. Because, like, you know, with Dr. Frankenstein kind of, you know, trying to be this like big hero, but not being able to give the love to the monster that it deserves, and then Mia Goth coming in and doing so, I kind of would have expected him to at least like talk about that a little bit more, like especially when he can talk to Dr. Frankenstein.
Yeah, I'm just a little disappointed in, I guess, just kind of the story of it all. Like, Frankenstein's a classic. Obviously, everyone knows about Frankenstein, but I just feel like this just doesn't hit the mark on, like, the storytelling with it. I feel like the original Frankenstein does a better job. Even with the stuff with the old man, I thought was better in the original Frankenstein. But maybe that's just me being a hater. I don't want to say I hated this movie. I probably liked it more. Good things Ben's not here. He would be tearing into this movie. I probably like it more than he does, but I don't think it's great. I would say, aside from F1, which I haven't seen yet, this is probably my least favorite of the Best Picture noms.
I can definitely see that. I do have a very soft spot for Guillermo del Toro. I do think that, you know, he's kind of like the king of the monster movie, and I think I do agree in the fact that maybe this was a little bit it felt like he kind of dropped it somewhere along the way. And I really hate to say that about a Del Toro film. It just really kind of like hurts me, especially one that he was so passionate about making. Like, I want nothing more than this movie to be an 11 out of 10.
Yeah. This movie, kind of in a way, I don't want to say it's exactly the same as Megalopolis, but it kind of is in the sense that this is the project that he's always wanted to make. But I just don't think it's fully realized, though, which is weird. Like, he's been sitting on this movie forever, like wanting to do this movie forever, but it feels like it's kind of half-baked.
I do agree. I think that it really comes from, like, almost wanting to make the best thing possible and trying. I feel like kind of with the case of both of them, they wanted to do so much because they wanted it to be the best thing they've ever created that it ultimately kind of causes it to suffer a little more because of it.
Yeah. Well, do you want to move on to Train Dreams now?
I would love to move on to Train Dreams. Do you want to start or should I?
Okay. I want to start with Train Dreams. I'm sorry, Anthony. I'm sorry, Dixon. I did not like Train Dreams that much. I got 3 words for this movie: show, don't tell. For a movie that is about to have it's nominated for best cinematography. For a movie that's nominated for best cinematography, all the storytelling is done through a narrator, and that's so annoying. I don't need the narrator to tell me how he's feeling or how he spent the years. Show me it. It's a period piece clip show. It's a bunch of screensavers.
I think, honestly, I do see where you're coming from in this. I agree that, maybe it could have. I think that the scenes are very well shot. It's a very beautiful movie. I will say that's probably why it got cinematography over like it showing. But I think it mostly suffers because it's a book adaptation. And so, you kind of run into this thing where like I feel with book adaptations, it almost becomes impossible to convey exactly what the author is trying to convey without some sort of narration.
Okay. I guess that's fair, but I don't know. Let me experience the story. Don't tell me the story. You know what I mean?
That's fair.
Let me watch the story unfold. It would just tell me everything that happened. I don't want that. I liked, because it's a very pretty movie. It's a very pretty movie. I would have loved to see more visual storytelling with this movie. I would have loved it, to tell me what's happening instead of it, tell me what's happening with its, visual language instead of what's happening through a narrator that we have no connection to.
I agree. I'm of the camp that I feel not every movie has to be like 2.5 hours. But with this movie, I wish we would have gotten an extra 20, 30 minutes because it would have had the opportunity to kind of go through more of those scenes and have extra time to kind of shoot rather than just be like, we're going to skip ahead.
Yeah. I want to half agree with you there because I do wish there was more to the story because it feels like not a lot happens. But also, this movie is such a drag. It's so slow. And I like slow burn movies. Don't take this the wrong way. But man, it's boring for no reason. I feel like it just has no substance to it.
I think kind of what I interpreted a lot of the kind of slowness, more like nothing really, I guess, happening, is it's more studying the character of Robert rather than everything that's happening around him. It's definitely like a very internal film. I think it does a really good job with the theming. Kind of having our main character be this like silent kind of like man of few words, kind of falls into the background. He reminds me a lot of The Forest. The Forest and him are the same, but at the same time, like The Forest takes everything from him. And it's really interesting. And it's really interesting because he's a logger. And so like, obviously, he's like going and chopping down the trees and then the trees kind of fight back when in reality, they kind of occupy the same space. It's like, it's man versus nature, but they're secretly, he has more in common with the forest than he thinks he does.
Yeah. Can we move on to the acting for this movie a little bit? I kind of want to, I touched on it a little bit briefly. William H. Macy he's phenomenal. He's quite literally, well, he's the saving grace of this movie, I will say. Besides Felicity Jones, I'll get into her in a second. William H. Macy, we talked about this last week with Tiana Taylor, but in this movie, he embodies perfectly the role of a supporting actor. He's in, out, and he holds weight on the story, especially on the character of Robert. That's his name, right?
Yes.
Yeah, on the character of Robert. When William H. Macy's character dies, you really feel that. The story feels like empty without it.
Yeah. William H. Macy's character, Arn, I feel really kind of, he provides Robert with like a sort of perspective that Robert doesn't understand he needs yet. Like, with like them in the forest talking about like the beauty, and he's like, isn't it beautiful? And he goes, well, what? And he goes, all of it. Like, this movie is about life and death. Like, it's about the beauty of life, the terrible things that can happen to you, and the cycle. When they're talking about, being from Minnesota, and like he's talking to the fire lookout, and she's like, this whole place used to be a glacier. And then, they started to see the cracks, and she's like, there's a lot of end of the world motifs in this movie with like the comet and the ice and kind of Robert's whole character. Like, you see his life end and restart at least like 2 to 3 different times. And I think once again, it kind of relates back to that forest motif. It gets chopped down, it burns down, it grows back.
Yeah, I can kind of get that metaphor, and I think that does add a little more context to the movie, and it does make me see it in a new light. I still think still think it's so boring. I think it's like nothing happens, and that's my main gripe. Is just nothing really interesting happens, and not every movie has to be super interesting, balls to the wall action. That's not what I'm asking for, but I just would have liked something to actually grasp onto a little bit more.
I agree. It does play it very slow. Like, if you're going into this movie expecting to not have to kind of like sit through a shot that might hold for a while, this might not be for you. But I think there's merit in doing it anyway. In a way, like, I think this movie does it to the best of its ability, and I think that there's a lot of the time where you can find movies like that try to replicate, like, the mundane aspects of life. But I would say this is probably the best movie to do it that I've seen.
I won't say it's the best one I've seen, but it does do a pretty good job of those mundane moments, especially that scene with William H. Macy and Robert. Isn't it beautiful? That is a great scene. I know. I won't say it's not. I'm not going to lie and say it's not. That's a great scene, and it really does embody what the message of the film is. But why couldn't more of the movie be like that, man?
I agree.
Like, why couldn't we get more, weightful, like, hearty moments in this movie?
I understand where you're coming from in that. I think that I wish I could have seen Robert, like, kind of have these more, like, come to God moments where he's like, like, life is beautiful. Kind of he quits the logging business, and then, it kind of the narrator talks about how, like, in his older age, he's like expecting this like great epiphany. And then, it kind of moves on as like, he doesn't really get it. Until the very end of the movie, when he gets to ride the plane, and, he's flying in the front seat, and as they're about to like turn down, the person who's driving it is like, you might want to hold on to something. And then he kind of like takes a double take and is like, what? And then almost in his own mind, he starts thinking about all of these like connections he's had, all of these people he's met, all the love he's experienced. And he's realizing that that's what he should be holding on to, those memories instead of feeling alone. And I think that's honestly, I think that's beautiful.
Yeah. I don't have anything else really good to say about this movie besides that Felicity Jones is also really good in this movie. She's always good, but
she was fantastic.
So if you want to add anything else about this movie that's positive?
I think I've kind of touched on all my points here.
I think I have touched on mine too. I will say the use of long takes in this movie is very charming. So a couple points for that.
All right. Well,
yeah, I think that's going to be it. Thank you guys for tuning in to the second episode of Screening Out.
Thank you guys. We'll be back next week. actually. We have one episode. This one will be coming out on Monday, and then you can expect another one on Friday where we'll be covering the next 2 movies. So be on the lookout for that. We're getting a double feature this week.
Awesome.